going to present to you a recruitment ready workshop to prepare a career within the New Zealand Defence Force. But before we start, we'll give you a short video to introduce to you the Defence Force. So what will we be talking about in tonight's presentation? So we'll give you an overview of the Navy, the Air Force and the Army, and we will talk about what the New Zealand Defence Force can offer you for a career, and we'll briefly touch on some of our tertiary scholarship schemes available, and then we'll go through the application process, and then at the end we'll go through a Q&A if anyone has any further questions.
So the NZDF, or New Zealand Defence Force, is made up of highly skilled men and women dedicated to protecting Aotearoa New Zealand. We are New Zealand's Army, Navy and Air Force, a combat capable force ready to respond every hour of every day. Together we stand up for what is right, protecting New Zealand's interests at sea, supporting peace and security at home and abroad, and helping communities in need when emergency strikes. When considering a service, most people will be interested in a particular trade or will naturally gravitate towards one of the three services.
The Navy's given me a life and a career. The experiences that I've got, I would never have received anywhere else.
The Royal New Zealand Navy is the maritime arm of the New Zealand Defence Force, and we currently have over 9 ships with over 2,500 personnel currently serving. Some of our maritime tasks include combat capability, humanitarian aid and disaster relief, fishery and border patrols, through to anti-piracy and peacekeeping deployments. We also have a Naval Reserve Forces, which means you can reap the benefits of a career in the Navy while still holding down a full-time civilian job or studies. And this means that you can get the best of both worlds.
So the New Zealand Army is the land component of the NZDF and comprises around 9,500 regular force personnel and close to 3,000 reserve force personnel. They are a combat-ready land force that is trained, led, and equipped to fight. The Army Reserve Force formerly known as the Territorial Force, or TF, is a part-time job. Reserve Force soldiers and officers will generally train 1 weekend per month, as well as the occasional weekday evening, with the minimum expected commitment being a cumulative 20 days per year.
And usually when we're going over, it means, help is on the way in. We like to problem solve. One other nation says they can't do it, I guess we go in there and we do it just to prove that it can be done. And we've always got a smile on our face, and nothing's too hard for little old New Zealand. That's the difference.
So the Air Force. The Air Force is a responsive and effective air power. So our primary role is to protect our national interests. They are a modern and dynamic part of the Defence Force, enabled with the right equipment to perform their primary roles, such as airborne surveillance and reconnaissance, combat, and air mobility.
So what can the New Zealand Defence Force offer you for a career? So we can offer you an amazing career with numerous opportunities, leadership training, and the ability to give you more than just the average 9-to-5 job. With over 109 exciting roles available, there is really something for everybody. And some of the benefits that we get is all our clothing is provided, which includes our workout gear. We get free medical and dental, gym nutrition, mental and physical training advice. We get access to discounted military messes, so our bars and our restaurants on bases, and social events and sports trips. We also get life insurance. We have our own super schemes, training discounts, and we have a Force for Families. And Force for Families not only supports the service person, but your family as well. And this could be through financial workshops, if you're deployed and your family needs deployment support. And we also provide housing opportunities as well. One exciting thing about the NZDF is we can have the ability to work in different locations within New Zealand and around the world. And we can participate in overseas exchanges and get to travel. There's also the ongoing career progression through education, leadership, and study opportunities. So as you can see, the NZDF offer a career which is fulfilling, challenging, different, and you get to work in an environment like no other.
So the NZDF offers 3 types of tertiary scholarships for officer roles. And these are for those who are about to begin or are currently studying toward a degree, or who have recently graduated. So that's quite important at any stage of your degree and study. Scholarships are there. Selection is highly competitive. Currently, the Navy and the Army are offering scholarship schemes, with Air Force about to pick them up again in the near future. Now, each service give their scholarship schemes different names and administer them in slightly different ways. They each have their own specific employment focus and approved fields of study, and each scheme offers varying degrees of financial support. Being considered for a scholarship scheme, candidates are required to submit an application to join the NZDF and complete our normal recruitment process to determine if you're suitable for a career as an officer. More information can be found around scholarships in the Defence Careers website under education, and of course you can always talk to a recruiter.
So now I've got you interested in a career with us. You're probably thinking to yourself, how do I apply? So to apply for a career with us, you need to head to the Defence Careers website and go to apply to join us. From there, this will take you through the start of our application process. If you want to apply, but you're still unsure about what role is the right fit for you or where you could fit in, we have a force interest test, which helps candidates get a sense of what trades are best fit for them. And ideally, this will help you self-select trades which you will enjoy the most for a career.
So the application process as you can see, it's quite complex. And so sometimes this can put people off. But once you've decided to apply, you go to the Defence Careers website and go to apply to join us. This will take you to a portal where you create a profile to get your application going. Your application process will start and you will need to provide a range of documents, complete an initial health check, and pass our aptitude testing. The aptitude testing is conducted online and you must pass this in order to progress your application. Now, the aptitude test that we are using is a measure of cognitive ability. So it is not actually a test you can study and prepare for, but more go into the practice test to familiarise yourself with the format of the testing and to practice answering questions under time constraints. Like any job you apply for, we need a CV, a cover letter, and academic transcripts. These need to be provided right at the start of your application, and you can present these documents while you're still in study. This will provide us with information about yourself, your skills, your hobbies, your educational achievements, and your career aspirations. Make sure these look professional, remain current, and have been checked for spelling and grammar. Some of the trades are highly competitive. So you want to showcase your right skills and experiences in these documents. The cover letter is a very important document as this is your letter of introduction of yourself to the NZDF. So make this job specific and outline your motivation for applying to the NZDF. There are a range of documents we ask for around residency, vaccination status, further medical history, which can delay your application. So attention to these matters in a timely fashion will dictate the length of the application process.
So a requirement in the New Zealand Defence Force is that you need to be medically and physically fit for military duties worldwide, and you will undergo several fitness tests during your application to join us. So your first fitness test will be on your assessment day or A day, and you'll be required to pass this test and your results will be graded. So this means that the better your fitness test scores are, the more competitive you are within the overall selection process. And this is particularly important for highly competitive trades as well. Everyone will be required to do a multi-stage fitness test or a beat test, push-ups and curl-ups. And you can find more information about the fitness standards and requirements of the NZDF through the NZDF Force Fit app. So on successful completion of your fitness test, you will then move to the interview stage where you will be interviewed by a recruiter. And to prepare for your interview, you need to think about your motivations, your skills and expectations, the knowledge of the trade and the service that you're looking to interview for. Please note that this is a formal job interview, so you need to prepare accordingly and present yourself in a professional image. Before your interview, you'll be sent an interview preparation document, but you need to think of examples of experiences that you've had and practice interviewing with friends or family beforehand. So as you can see on the slide, there is that little box on the right-hand side that says officer and selected roles may require a selection board. Some roles require selection boards such as military police, intelligence roles, if you want to go for a physical training instructor, aircrew, and all officer roles within the New Zealand Defence Force. And what that is it's basically an extended job interview where you will be interviewed and spoken to with a bunch of senior officials within the New Zealand Defence Force. And you'll also go through some interviewing with psychologists as well. Like Barb said before, selection for these roles are highly competitive, so it's best to prepare yourself. And if you do apply, your candidate engagement facilitator will send you a selection board preparation document beforehand so that you know what is expected of you during the interview. So if you want to know more, please visit the New Zealand Defence Careers website, or you can scan this barcode and a recruiter will reach out to you. So that concludes the end of our presentation tonight, and we're happy to take questions.
Thanks, Barb. Thanks, Morgan. Yeah, great opportunities and a very comprehensive application process, but obviously with some really good guidelines. So really important for people that are interested to be reading through those and familiarising themselves with what's required. And I should say, if there are any students wanting or hesitant about applying or have, and they're in the process, I'm right in saying they shouldn't hesitate to contact you as a recruiting people, or come to see us at UC Careers for any assistance. Has anyone got any questions? Either unmute yourself and fire away, or put into the chat.
Yeah. So as far as timelines go, so the next, we're running selection boards in the next few weeks for Navy and Air Force. So our next selection boards will be in September, October at the end of the year, and that will be for all roles for all three services. Mm-hmm. Sometimes some of the specialist roles we are limited targets, but we get students who have an interest in wanting to find out about roles. And the one thing I would say is back yourself. You know, we've said it's highly competitive, and it's and you've got to go through a whole lot, but we have got an amazing group of young people of all ages and all cultures studying at the university who are perhaps looking for a job that sits outside the 9 to 5. So lawyers, dentists, doctors, all those roles that are out in the corporate world, a lot of them are real jobs in the Army, Navy, and the Air Force. So even if you're not sure, just reach out and ask us, and no question is a silly question at all. Okay, so we've got a question on asthma. Now, neither Morgan and I are qualified to answer a medical question. However, the general rule of thumb is we will say apply, and in your initial health check, that will raise a flag with asthma. That will involve our medical team gaining further information from you. And in some cases, that may mean going to do a saline test and getting a reading for that. So we don't say no to asthma straight out. It depends how your asthma is and how it is managed. In the same way, eyesight. There are very few trades where eyesight is absolutely, well, I don't think anyone has 20/20 vision, do they, Morgan? But pilots and aircrew can wear glasses, contact lenses. So that's a really good question, because I think a lot of people think your eyesight. Of more importance to us is whether you are colorblind. And so that is a test that is done initially in the initial health screening. And our recruiters do that because if you're going to be in the IT world, your colour perception is really important. So for some roles, colour blindness would preclude you from doing certain roles. Do you want to answer that, Morgan?
So you might have seen the news recently where the New Zealand Defence Force were put into managed isolation facilities, and we contributed over 2,000 personnel at a time through all three services. And we've just been told by our Chief of Defence Force that we will be stopping MIQ. So the future of the Defence Force is really focused on reintegration, regeneration, because we have lost quite a lot of people over the last 2 years. Also really depends on the who the party is in charge at the time and what they want defence to look like. But we really can't talk to budget cuts because every 4 years there's this thing called Defence White Paper that comes out, and it basically gives the Defence Force a budget for the next 4 years. And in that white paper, you might have seen things, the last one, we had Aotearoa, the new ship, come in. We've got new Air Force capabilities coming in. Defence is looking good though, because I would say that it's a very stable job, especially with COVID happening. And yeah, Barb, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's good. I think I sense from the student body that there is some anxiousness or concern about, you know, do I have a job? Is there a future? How's COVID kind of upset the balance of things? But we are, as an organisation, we are still training and we are still employing, and our work, both at home and abroad, is still going on through all of this. So have confidence that there are jobs out there, and there is work career opportunities for you, absolutely. There is a question on application process has the most weight on it. It's actually a good question, because we actually gather a whole lot of information from your ESSA aptitude testing, your fitness, your academic grades, everything. But we don't just look at those insular. So we're looking at a holistic approach to the candidate. What are they bringing to the table? For some, you know, it's leadership and volunteering and for the community, speaking another language, getting involved in university life. I mean, we look for leadership qualities and the potential for you to be leadership, to show leadership. And the university is really a great forum for you to do that, whether you join your clubs, your societies, help organising events, all of that shows us leadership and commitment to the wider life of just going to lectures and studying, but contributing to university life overall. And that's important. We look at all that too.
I'll just add some points in there for Sharon. So to improve your score, we're looking at a wide range of things. One thing you can always improve on and work really hard towards is your fitness. It's not always natural to everybody, and for women in particular, upper body strength and push-ups is something that we all need to really work on. So if it comes natural to you, amazing. But those are things that you can change and you can work on over time. But we don't just consider if you're as fit as everybody else, that's the be all end all for a highly competitive trade. We do look at things like your interview. If you go to a selection board, there's scores for that as well. So to best improve your chances, especially for highly competitive trades, for example, a pilot, interview is very important because you need to research, like we said before, prepare answers, and we're looking for high flyers in those real competitive trades as well. Should we go to James's?
Yeah, the Navy.
Amazing. So I'm glad that you asked this question, because I specifically look at recruiting engineer roles. So we've got a marine engineering officer, which deals with mostly the ship's propulsion systems, hydraulic systems on board. And then we've got the weapons engineering officer. So they deal with our combat systems. They deal with our weapon systems, sensor and communication systems on board. And Navy also provides scholarship schemes for those two roles. So I would just recommend to look on Defence Careers website. If you are studying and you want to complete UC, we do have some people on scholarship schemes studying engineering at the moment. I think we've got about 4 or 5 studying there. But if you're not interested in an officer role, there's also marine technicians and weapons and electronic technician roles as well that you can look into. But all 3 services, engineers are what we're looking for in those types of skills as well. Barb, psychologists?
Right, psych. So we have IO psychs across all 3 services, Army, Navy, Air. They all do the same role. And the qualification, we need you to have completed your master's, okay? Now, depending on the papers the university offers, it doesn't matter if you're not strong in IO papers. So we look at your whole degree, but our IO, our psychs are focused on selection and recruitment, well-being. They own all our assessment testing. So they're about growing leaders. So the psychs, they're not the ambulance at the bottom of the hill. They sit at the pinnacle, and they're about developing the organisation, taking everyone through change management and getting everyone to be the best that they can be. Human factors, human performance. And so that generally is, in a very general, quick statement, the role of the site across all three services. And the difference really is the platforms between Army, Navy, Air, and the type of issues that and challenges that each of the service has for their personnel.
So Nicholas Matthews said, are there any particular roles that would be well suited for computer science and information systems? I can give my advice and Barb can probably chime in after. So we take computer science for weapon engineering officers because they also can branch into cyber as well. You've also got in the Air Force communication and information system officers or specialists. You've also got the signals and the communications roles within the Air Force, within the Army as well. So there's a lot of different roles available. It's more just trying to pinpoint the service that you align with or that you see yourself as a career in, because not everybody wants to be in a tin can for 6 months, and not everyone wants to live in a hole for a few weeks at a time. So it's really just finding what service aligns with you and then looking at those roles in there as well.
And the only thing I would add, that our computer science and information systems students and graduates are highly sought after. And you can come in and then we can train you into cybersecurity or other areas. So you come to us with that qualification, you are a great resource for all three services. Likewise, someone's asked about HR, operations, supply chain management. Absolutely, you become our logistics and supply officers. This gives you the sound base of understanding the logistics and how we move things and people around the world via air, land and sea. You might want to add something there, Megan, Morgan.
Yeah, so all three services have logistics officers. In the Navy, it's called Maritime Logistics Officer. Air Force, it's just a logistics officer. So we do deal with HR, operations management, supply chain. I wouldn't say it's the same as you would in the private sector or in the business sector. We do have our own way of doing supply chain, just with the type of supply that we move around the world, but this could definitely be something for you to look into. But what would you say are the most competitive roles within the NZDF?
Well, I just think all our roles are competitive, and I think we get hundreds and hundreds of applications a year, thousands. And, you know, some people drop out really quickly right at the start through a variety of reasons. So it's like any job or role that you go for, there will always be someone else there competing for you, but don't let a highly kind of competitive environment put you off. Back yourself, put your hand up and throw your name in the hat. Competition is good. Are there any automation jobs within the Air Force, or are engineering roles mainly involved with repair and maintenance? Morgan.
Not within the Air Force, Barb. All I can think of is, what are they called? Automotive technicians in the Army, which basically repairs your vehicles. They used to call them vehicle mechanics. But most jobs, we call them technicians. They do a lot of maintenance and repair for their roles.
So an Air Force officer will oversee the technicians doing the work. Is that kind of a fair? So yeah, although some of our engineers have had an opportunity because our capability comes with systems and things inside, and so your role is to maintain and keep everything going. But sometimes our engineers have to be quite creative. Is basic training the same across all three branches? Kind of. So we're looking for the same sort of thing: customs, history, drill, teaching people how to kind of come from being a civilian to being a member of a military organization, which has structure and hierarchy. So we learn the same type of things, although each of the three services, we all march differently. We all do parades differently. The Navy blow a lot of whistles. Air Force, we don't blow whistles. So we each have our own flavor to training. If you come into the Air Force or the Navy, the training, officer training is the same length, basically 26 and 24 weeks. If you come into the Army as an officer, you do almost a year down at Waiouru. If you come in as a specialist officer, then the training is shortened to 14 weeks. Because if we're bringing you in to be a lawyer, a psych, a doctor, we don't need you to be able to command a battalion and run great field exercises. We need you to be able to do your specialist role. So that's why that training is reduced to 14 weeks. You cover the same skills and fieldcraft and all that, but just in a shorter time.
And all of the soldier rating and airperson basic training. So if you go in for someone who's not an officer, it's 3 months. And that could be either in Devonport Naval Base, Waiouru, or down in Blenheim.
There's a really good question about station, where you get stationed and posted. So one thing that's quite peculiar or quite specific to defence roles is we never apply for a location. So we put our hand up to come into either Army, Navy and Air, and part of being in the military is the only thing we're going to know is where we're going to do our officer training or our recruit training. And after that, we've got to be prepared to move and basically can be posted to any camp or base around the country. And on top of that, some of our roles are tri-service. So I may wear an Air Force uniform and I can get posted to the Navy base. So I think that is a very important, that's a really good question, because you can't say I'm going to join, but I only want to live in Auckland, or I only want to live in Christchurch, because that's not something that we can guarantee. So you've got to be prepared for that flexibility.
So the next one's for Matt. Great that you're part of TF, awesome. So you will need to go career management because you don't actually sit under recruiting anymore, because you're an enlisted member of the career manager, or you're and get advice. And you'd be looking, if you're TF, you're looking at a service change and then moving into full-time as well.
Yeah, so I think it can be done, absolutely. And it's a different paperwork trail, and you go through the hands of different people. But because we sit in the recruiting portfolio, we often end up helping to facilitate that process to go a little bit more smoother, because it can be difficult, particularly wanting to do a trade and a service change. So we have the ability to help facilitate that process, even though you don't sit underneath us. Great questions.
And great answers. Yeah, really, really good session. Are there any more questions while Barb and Morgan are here?
You can ask about our careers if you're interested. When I first joined, I loved to hear stories about what other people did, because it kind of gave me something to look forward to and aspirations and what I wanted to do in my career. So if you have any questions for us personally, then feel free to write those down as well.
I think they're bright. They're probably thinking it's getting near dinner time now and I need food, and that's perfectly understandable. But as you say, we can be contacted. So this will go up, and Chris, we've got an email specialist which was on the slide, and that will come straight into our inbox. So there's 3 of us sitting in that cell. And if there are questions around other careers, we can facilitate those going to the right recruiters so that people can get the answers. If you come on and send questions or go through to the 0800 or go in and log a question, you can expect to get a reply within 72 hours. And if someone hasn't got back to you, then you can come to us and say what's going on.
We've got a couple more questions, Barb, which is great. So one's from James. What would you say would be the hardest obstacles for you to overcome with the application process? There's things that hold people up, such as not having your correct documents that we request. You only get 2 chances to pass your aptitude testing. So we recommend, like Barb said before, do the practice test so you familiarise yourself. The first time, if you fail, you get placed on a 6-month stand down. The second time, if you fail, you can't apply for the New Zealand Defence Force again. So it's really just about doing the cognitive testing before. Obstacles for people are also their fitness. Some people think that they can just run their beep test the day of, or they haven't actually practiced what we call a entry-level fitness test for Army, and they get there and they basically get injuries because they've pushed themselves to the max but have done no training beforehand, and therefore that they sit out of the application process. All of these things you can help though, and that's why we have on the Defence Force website the application process and what you can expect. And some hard obstacles are people that need to get further medical testing that we require. Some specialist appointments can take a long time, especially if you're going through the public health system as well. Barb, do you have anything to add to that?
No, probably just the vaccination. So one thing is you have to have all your childhood vaccinations to come in. Now, up till a few years ago, you could go and get a serology test and that would show, yes, you have had those vaccinations in the past. That's been a change in policy within Defence. And so we no longer will accept a serology test, which means hunt down your Plunkett book, hunt down through your GP all your vaccination records, because you have to show us a hard copy. And if you are unable to present that, you actually have to redo all your vaccinations, which from start to finish takes 6 months, and it is a cost to you as an individual. So that's one document that you can hunt out now and see. And the other thing I'd say, if you're using access to student health and medical records and things, pick up your records from student health on exiting the university. So in the last year, we had a couple of students who had left university, then wanted to go back and get their medical records, and it turned out to be a really hard process. So they're not things you would think of as being really important and that you need to worry about, but it's actually your medical records are really important for us.
Barb, is the recruitment office in Christchurch open?
We are open for appointments that are booked in, and they're running fitness tests in a very controlled environment. So ring the 0800 number, and because we've still got a team of recruiters in there, and we're managing and controlling the people that are coming in and out of the building. So yes, but with limited access, but you can always get access to a recruiter.
So Conway put, wondering how the return on investment of training looks like. So there are some courses that we provide, or there are some educational study fields that we provide where we invest a significant amount of money on you. And then for that amount of money that we invest on you, there's usually a thing called a return of service, where you're required to give us time back for the investment that we've given. An example of that is pilot. Their training, they go through a very expensive training process, very competitive, and they're required to give us back 10 years. That's the highest one I can think of off the top of my head. But if you are to give time back, it usually is a year-for-year basis. So for example, if we pay for you to study for a year, we expect a year back. Most of them are about 2 or 3 years for return of service, Barb, depending on what you do.
And in regard to lawyers and psychologists, so we have the ability to register you with the New Zealand Psych Board under the general scope of practice. And we also are accredited to admit you to the bar as a barrister and solicitor. So if we do that with you, incurs a ROSO, or a return of service, and it is 1-for-1 +1 or the equivalent amount. So for example, we will take 2 years to put you through before we admit you to the bar, which is, we call it that, your legal internship. And so there is a 2-year return of service for that.
But that's all stipulated to you when you come in for certain trades and roles. So you are aware of the time back that you've got to give. So you can also plan your life as well. Nicholas put long-term career in the NZDF. If you were interested in joining the SAS, what route would you need to take? Amazing, very amazing trade or core to aspire to join. The SAS now have 2 different ways of going in. So you can go in as a civilian, or you can be a member of the Defence Force and then look to apply. If you do join the SAS, you still need to go through infantry core training with the Army. You'll need to do the Army basic course as well, and then you'll go through your SAS coursing on top of that. So it is quite a lengthy process if you're coming in as a civilian. But we have had people do it, and we've had amazing people come through. So not to say that it isn't possible, but a lot of our applications actually come in as members of the NZ Defence Force because they know a little bit about what they've got to expect. They've conditioned their bodies to the grueling training environment that's involved. And a lot of them come from infantry or divers or physical training instructors, those types of roles where your physical training ability is required at a lot higher standard compared to other trades.
Yeah, great opportunity if you want to join the group and you're one of those high performance, high focus people that is going to be successful in a career. There's a really good question about if you're being transferred across the country, how much warning do you get? This is a really good question. Most of the time, you know that if we get posted to a camp or a base, it's a 2 to 3 year posting cycle. So you're not dragged out of your bed in the middle of the night and said, pack your bag, you're gone. There is a lot more consultation around moving around bases and camps, but we all have career managers in defence, and so most people know the job they're doing now and what's likely to be their next job. What can upset that is people elect to go and do a deployment, and you might go off to the Middle East for 6 months, or you might go to the Sudan and into Korea and be an observer on the what's the
DMZ.
The DMZ. So looking across at North Korea as a monitor and a officer there on deployment. So sometimes when you go away on a deployment and then you come back, that can kind of sometimes just upset the posting cycle. But generally speaking, you're in a place and a job 2 to 3 years, and you know when the posting cycle is going to come up and when you're going to be moved. And I will add that when we are moved around the country, the Defence Force pay for us to move. So they send in the packing truck, they pack up all your stuff, and so moving you around the country is at a cost to the organisation, not the individual.
You do have a little bit of a say about being posted, but you have to be reminded that if you join the New Zealand Defence Force, we have a requirement to do what the Defence Force wants us to do, and that does require being posted or moved around to different work locations as well. It can be tough on families, but they usually do give you enough time to consolidate with your family and come up with a plan. And sometimes you just can't move for whatever reason, but you have to be prepared to give and take within your career as well.
Good.
Okay, that's fantastic. Any more questions before we wrap up? Conway, you mentioned, I saw a question earlier on where can you see the recording? The recording is on UC Careers YouTube channel, and you can get the link from our website. So it's the Canterbury website /careers. And that should be posted up there tomorrow. Okay.
Great.
That looks like it. Hey, thank you, Morgan and Barb, very much for that, and for this, for all of those students attending. It's a really informative session, and you know, one of the big takeaways for me, apart from all the exciting opportunities, is the value and importance of really checking out that application process thoroughly, well in time before applying. It's unfortunately, it's not an uncommon scenario to see students here the night before an deadline, not for you guys, but for other jobs. And, you know, without that preparation, they reduce their chances of being successful. So, but especially for the Defence Force, I would really recommend looking thoroughly at that application process and thinking, okay, what do I need to do? How do I need to go about it? And what can I do to make a really strong application? And as I said before, you know, the recruitment people at the Defence Force are available to assist, as are we here at UC Careers. So thank you very much. I think we shall.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks to all the students that have logged on for the presentation.
Thank you.
Loved having your presence here this evening.
Thank you, everyone. We shall end the session. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.